Hi everyone, and it's Peter Zellum's Griniflix Adventure 8, and welcome to another video. Today's video is still on the topic of black and white photography and color photography, converting color raw images into black and white using Lightroom, and all you shooting black and white film on a film camera or on a dedicated black and white digital camera like this Leica M10M monochrome using filters. Color filters when shooting black and white, and what sort of impact that has on a dedicated digital monochrome camera and also black and white film camera. And I think I've already covered a couple of videos on adjusting color raw files and making them into black and white using Adobe Lightroom, and there will be some links in the description or above where you can find out the results of that. It's a really simple video today. All I'm going to do is just photograph these filters, and then using a light board that's backlit, I can then put the filters on the lens that I'm using. In this case here it's going to be the Summilux 50mm f1.4, and take the shot of the light board with the other filters, the other color filters, and to see what sort of impact there is. Okay, there is a third option to consider, and that is to use the black and white in-camera JPEG files that are available on a color sensor camera. Have a look at the JPEG file that can be created, and also how you can adjust it in camera to handle different filters. Okay, so with the M240p, so we can go to menu, and we go down to the second page. We go to film mode. Right now it's off, which means it's shooting color, and the JPEG files that will be created will be in color. We can choose black and white, so the JPEG files will be in black and white, and then in the options that we have, we can apply color filters on the JPEG files that are created: yellow, orange, red, and green, and blue. We're looking at the files from the Leica M240p, so the color raw file, DNG file here, and we're looking at the black and white JPEG file, in-camera JPEG file as it came out. No filter, in-camera, no filter applied. Let's have a look what happens when we apply the yellow filter, in-camera yellow filter that's applied now. And now as a reference we've got the no filter on the left hand side and the yellow filter applied to the JPEG file on the right hand side. What do we see? Not a great deal of difference. Let's have a look at the orange. So now we've got the orange in-camera filter applied to the JPEG file, and you start to notice that the orange starts to get a bit lighter, and you notice the red starting to get a bit lighter as well. Blue's much the same. The greens appear to me a little bit darker, actually, applying the orange filter. This is now the red filter, in-camera red filter applied, and you would expect now that the blues would start to appear darker, but it's not that much darker. So the JPEG, the black and white JPEG file in camera is already quite dark for the blues. Applying the red in-camera filter means that the reds start to become lighter, the orange starts to become lighter, and the yellows become a bit lighter as well. Green's a little bit darker, but not much difference. Pink, a bit of a change. Purple, a bit of a change. No, purple, no change at all. Brown, no change at all. So pink and yellow a bit lighter with the red filter applied. If we go to the green filter, in-camera green filter, and let's see how the JPEG, black and white JPEG file looks like. So the green filter here, no green filter applied here, is not, maybe is a little bit lighter there, hard to tell. So the green filter has little impact, I think, and the blue is a little bit lighter, I think. And then if we have a look what happens when we apply the in-camera blue filter, the green looks a bit darker, the blue definitely is lighter. You can see there, no filter, the blue filter here, and that's definitely lighter. Interesting, the orange has gone really dark applying the blue filter. The yellow also darker. The red is also probably darker as well. You just don't notice it here because it's already quite dark. So okay, that's it. So the blue, the red, probably the most interesting. Green has very little effect, I think, as far as the in-camera JPEG filters for black and white. So that was the M240p, a color sensor with black and white JPEG files using the in-camera black and white filters, and we saw the result. The advantage of using the in-camera black and white filters is that you're not losing any light whatsoever by applying a filter. That is different when you're putting the filter on the outside of the lens. As soon as you put a filter in front of the lens, you're going to change the amount of light that actually comes into the lens. So that's a disadvantage of using external filters, unless you're trying to reduce the amount of light coming through the lens. For example, a neutral density filter. Well, a green filter like this has the same impact of light coming through the lens as the neutral density. So this is a 4 times or 2 stops, f-stops or shutter speed stops of light that's reduced going through this neutral density filter. That is similar to this green one. I think the green one is about 2.5 stops. The red, on the other hand, is about 3 stops. So when you're shooting black and white film or with a dedicated monochrome camera, then putting that filter in front, you're going to have to reduce your shutter speed by 3 stops or open up your aperture by 3 stops to get the right exposure. Besides adjusting the shutter speed and the aperture, of course, you can adjust the ISO. Anyway, let's have a look at the photographs I took and then we can talk about that. These black and white photos here are all the raw files from the Leica M10 monochrome. This last file here is a color one from the Leica M240p as a reference point. The main filters that I'll be using to compare to the M240 in-camera JPEG filters for black and white are the yellow, the orange, the red, the blue and the green. These other colors there are there just for reference. So here we are, we've got the raw file from the Leica M10 monochrome, and we're going to take now the yellow filter which resides there, put it on the lens. Now what that means is that where I've got yellow now is just a clear lens, a UV filter, so we won't use that, but we will see how that yellow filter on the lens affects the gray scales of these other filters, whether it be green, blue, orange or red. Okay, now we've got the M10 monochrome, no filter on the lens. But now I've taken the yellow filter and I've put it onto the lens here, so that's why I've got the UV filter there, and we're comparing the yellow filter. So now you can see what sort of impact that yellow filter on the lens is created on these other filter colors, or other colors in this case here. By putting on the yellow filter, the orange has become lighter compared to no filter. The red, you can't really tell that much. It is a bit lighter, I suspect. The brown's a bit lighter. Pink hasn't changed. Neutral density is the same, obviously. And the green, maybe it's a little bit lighter. Now we've got the orange filter. Hence, again, the orange, we've got a clear filter there now. But the orange makes the yellow lighter and makes the red lighter. So if you've got any reds or yellows in your picture and you're using an orange filter, they will become lighter in the black and white image. The sky does get darker. It did get darker a little bit with the yellow as well. With orange filter, the reds, the yellows, and obviously the oranges will become lighter. The greens, again, much the same, nothing really changes there. The pinks have gone lighter. Brown's a bit lighter as well. Purple doesn't really make much difference. Neutral density hasn't changed. Try the red filter and let's see how that looks. Yes, we have the red filter on right now. You can see that the blue has become quite dark. The red is obviously, okay, I've taken the filter off, so that's a UV filter there. But the red has made the orange and the yellow quite light. The pink is quite light. The brown is also quite light. Neutral density is the same. Greens are much the same again. If we go to the blue filter now, I've got the UV filter there. That's why it's completely white. So blue has made the yellows darker, the oranges much darker, and the reds really dark. Green's a little bit darker, but you can see how green doesn't change much at all, regardless of what sort of filter you put on there. Brown's a bit darker, purple and pink haven't really changed much at all. And if we then go to the green filter, okay, we've got the UV filter there, that's why it's completely white. Green is not making much difference to any of the colors. It's interesting. Putting these filters on the lens reduces the amount of light coming into the camera onto the sensor. Putting the yellow on reduces the amount of light by half a stop, orange 2 stops, red 3 stops, purple by 1 stop, blue about 1.5 stop, brown 1.5 stops, pink half a stop, neutral density is 2 stops in this case, and the green is about 2.5 stops. So that's for particular filters that I'm actually using. Obviously, if you've got different intensity of blues or reds or orange, and then you have to do your own calculations as far as number of stops are concerned. So the other thing that I noticed between the monochrome and the Leica M240p was that the raw file of the monochrome, if we look at the gray scales going across the filters, the colored filters, so there's no filter applied to the outside lens, to the lens at all. So these are the colors. We've got the yellow, the orange, red, and also on the M240p, same shot, but using, again, no internal filters applied to the black and white JPEG file within the camera, but you can see the difference, the way it handles yellow, blue, and green. So we've got yellow, blue, and green out of the 2 cameras. So the JPEG file from the Leica M10 monochrome, you can see that the blue is pretty much quite light, approaching that of yellow. And then it goes to green. So green is the darkest, followed by blue and then yellow. And you look at what comes out of the JPEG file, black and white JPEG file with no filters applied. The blue is the darkest and the green is lighter. Green's about the same, but there's significant difference in the blues. So what I find with the Leica M10 monochrome is that you have to apply a yellow filter to actually bring the blue to the darkness that comes out of the M240p without actually applying any filters whatsoever internally. Here on the left now I've got the Leica M10 monochrome with the yellow filter on the lens, and you can see how the blue has now become darker, similar to that of the M240p without any filters applied internally. So here I've got the yellow filter on the lens, that's why we've got the UV filter there, nice and clear, on the M10 monochrome there. And on the right side we've got the Leica M240p with the in-camera yellow filter applied. So now we can actually see how that changes the tone of the other colors. And both are pretty similar. The monochrome does produce a darker red still, even with the yellow filter on. So it should make the red a bit lighter. It appears a bit lighter on the M240p, but otherwise much the same. Okay, so now we've got orange, M10 monochrome on the left, the Leica M240p on the right. So orange now is applied to on the lens and see how the other tones are changing. And then orange in the in-camera JPEG file, in-camera processing, and see how the changes occur here. So the orange has affected the blue a lot more on the monochrome. It's made it much darker. Otherwise the other shades or tones are much the same. So applying the orange again on the monochrome, the red is starting to become lighter compared to that of the M240p. Okay, so that was orange. Now we're going to go to red. So now we've got on the left hand side we've got the Leica M10 monochrome. We've got the red filter on the lens, so that's why it's clear here. Again, we've got the UV filter here as a reference. And then we've got the red filter, internal red filter applied to the JPEG file. Blue's appearing to be dark, probably similar for both, a bit darker with the M10 monochrome. Orange is lighter, yellow is lighter than the M240p. Otherwise they're similar, so that was red. Let's have a look at blue. Okay, the M10 monochrome on the left, the M240p on the right. So we've got the blue filter on the lens here on the monochrome, and then the internal blue filter applied. So as you can imagine, the blues affected the yellows, the oranges, and the reds, and they all become much darker and similar on both cameras. Greens hasn't changed much, all the other tones are much the same. Okay, green. How does green filter impact things? Okay, on the M10 monochrome, not much. On the Leica M240p, with a green internal filter applied to the black and white JPEGs, not much either. So very similar to in both cameras. Without a doubt, one advantage of shooting color, so this is a Leica M240p So this is a color sensor, and then converting the images into black and white in post-processing in Lightroom has a distinct advantage. You get both the color file and you've also got the black and white file that you convert or create in Lightroom. And then you can obviously play around with different shades. So depending on the type of photograph you have, you can change the filters to get the type of impact that you want. If you're shooting black and white film or monochrome digital, then you're going to have to apply the filters to change the impact of the toning in the photograph that you're taking. If we're talking about one out of all these filters, if there was one filter that can be used, classified as a general filter for black and white, is probably the yellow. Yellow filter, you don't lose a lot of light. It's a half a stop, so it doesn't have great impact on your photography. If you want to have more of an impact with regards to different color tones, or you want to reduce the amount of light coming into the lens, well then you can start going into other filters like the red filter, which has the effect of reducing the amount of light by 3 stops. Like most of my videos, I'm learning as I go, and hopefully that will be of value to you as well as my viewers. So if you like the video, please do give it a thumbs up. If you haven't already subscribed to my YouTube channel, please do subscribe and press the notifications so when new videos come out, you will receive them. Hope you've enjoyed this video, and I look forward to seeing you on the next video. Thanks for watching. Cheers.